Yo, it's Retro. Welcome to another video. This past week, Ultimates issue 6 dropped, and with that ended the very first arc of this series. Now, I have not talked about it on this channel yet, mainly because I wanted to give this series kind of its due before I really got into my thoughts and my review on the series. Not even just as a whole, but even just the issues that have come out and all of the elements that go into this series. Ultimates is written by Deniz Camp and drawn and colored by Juan Frigeri and Federico Blee. This team is bringing one of the best superhero comics. Honestly, one of the best comics printing right now. It's absolutely ridiculous what this team is able to do issue to issue, story to story, with characters that are so relatable and stories that are incredibly relevant. The first arc of Ultimates really culminates into this message that superheroes doing superhero things really is not enough, and it is executed spectacularly. If you don't know, the Ultimates first formed in Ultimate Universe #1 by Jonathan Hickman and Stefano Caselli. This saw this universe's Tony Stark, Thor, and Sif finding Captain America in the ice and moving forward to essentially start a revolution. We all know the Avengers. We all know that they protect the world. What happens when the world is conquered by an evil egomaniac who wanted to shape the world and universe the way he saw fit? What do you do then? What do you do when the United States is no longer the United States? It is now the North American conglomerate, basically. It is an entire continent united under one evil villain. What do you do then? And they have multiple villains and factions in place that are going to keep this in place, that are going to keep this regime intact. How do you go about not only protecting America, but essentially saving it? That's what issue 1 dives into. Tony Stark, who goes now by Iron Lad, Captain America, Thor, and Sif are on a mission to rescue America. And that's the big mission statement of this series. They want to rescue America. Deniz Camp starts this series with the initial formation of the Ultimates, and that is by recruiting Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, Ant-Man and the Wasp. This recruitment was very interesting, and as you'll see when you read this series, you will see that the general gist of every issue up to issue 5 is recruiting. They want a full team so that they can go on and take on the first villain of this regime that the makers set in place. With this whole recruitment process, Iron Lad thought it was a good idea to send holograms to a whole bunch of heroes in the world that should have been superheroes, people that were superheroes in Earth 616, but due to the makers' machinations did not become that. So then comes Ant-Man and the Wasp in issue 1, and their whole deal is very interesting because if you do know some history of Marvel, you do know that Hank Pym is very scared now. He has created these monsters. He's the father of Ultron, and while he did do some good and create Vision, his image in Marvel is very tainted. He is not what he used to be. He is a very loving husband and extraordinary scientist, but his image has forever been tainted, unfortunately, with his creation of Ultron and with some unfortunate domestic violence issues that have gone on with Janet Van Dyne. But that's just image, not necessarily who he is as a person. These are things that happened out of context, and unfortunately Ant-Man as a person has never recovered from that. So it's interesting that in this universe you juxtapose that version of Hank Pym to 6160's Hank Pym, who is a lot more scared now to push that envelope to become something greater than who he actually is. Some of this greatness does come at the cost of his relationship with Janet Van Dyne in some respect, but here all of that hasn't happened. All of that may never happen. So instead of Janet Van Dyne being scared as well, she is fully supportive of Hank Pym, and she wants Hank Pym to succeed and be great because that is who he is. The first issue is excellent, and it's a textbook recruitment issue, and you couldn't have started a series better, honestly. Then we move on to issue 2, which was Steve Rogers' issue, essentially. As we've gone on into the series, we've seen that every issue kind of follows one person that is a part of this network of the Ultimate Universe and of the Ultimates as a team. So first was Ant-Man and the Wasp. Issue 2 follows Steve Rogers. And really, this follows that message, that big message of the Ultimates rescuing America. And we see Steve Rogers essentially having a history of having having a lecture played to him about what has gone on in the United States since he has gone into the ice. He sees all of these atrocities, he sees these tragedies, and I love this so much because it really does test Captain America as an image and as a superhero, as a symbol, because Captain America is supposed to resemble what America should be. He's supposed to push the narrative and the agenda of what America is supposed to achieve. And we see, not only in real life, but in this issue, how much America has failed him as a superhero. It's so fascinating to have something this relevant coming out right now. And it's going to be relevant for a long time. You could put this out 20 years ago, it would still make a lot of sense. You could put this out 20 years later, it still works. Captain America is not supposed to resemble what America is, but what America's supposed to be, and he is now distraught. He is questioning himself because he believed in America, and now he's seeing everything that America has done, and he doesn't even know if he can properly represent it. But at the same time, him as a soldier, him as a warrior, he still wants to rescue America. He wants to rescue and help the people who live here, and it's wonderful. And then all of this culminates at the end of issue 2, where we see who America is really referring to. And while it is referring to the United States of America as a country, it's also referring to America Chavez, who is incarcerated and used to fuel energy for big corporations, exploitation at its finest. It's a fascinating issue. Then we move on to issue 3, where we find out this universe's She-Hulk, who is not Jennifer Walter, is not related to Dr. Banner. However, Director Banner is Hulk in this universe, and he was doing experiments off the coast of an island, and unfortunately with the gamma bomb completely radiated that entire island. We fast forward many years and we see what has happened to this island, and we see that not only are the animals affected and they have turned into these monstrous versions of themselves, but even the people, some of them have turned to Hulks, like the She-Hulk that has joined the Ultimates at the end. But then you see some people who are completely disfigured and disformed, some people who can't even function as basic human beings anymore. And it really goes to show how much people in this country and in other countries go so far to exploit and use resources that aren't theirs without realizing the consequences. Again, another fascinating issue. She-Hulk is an amazing character, and she adds so much more depth to this team because she has a cause. They're going after Director Banner at the end of this, and of course she wants payback for everything that he's done to her people and her land, her sacred land. Then we go to issue 4, which is this universe's Doctor Doom / Reed Richards origin story, and we see everything that the maker has done to this universe's Reed Richards, and it is terrifying, genuinely. It's not horrifying, it's not something that's unreadable, but if you know the maker, you see this coming. He is a terrible villain. If you are kind of new to the maker and everything that he's done, this is a tough read a little bit, because he is doing things to this universe's Reed Richards that causes irreversible damage mentally and physically. It's horrible. I feel so bad to this universe's Reed Richards. We see why the Fantastic Four does not exist and never will, probably, unless time travel shenanigans happens. But Reed Richards is damaged, and it really causes him to embody the Doctor Doom persona more than, honestly, Victor Von Doom does. It's fascinating character work, and it does so much for world building. All of these issues have. Deniz Camp's ability to build this universe through this series has been amazing, while still driving his narrative of rescuing America. It's a wonderful work. Get to issue 5, we get introduced to this universe's Charlie Hawkeyes, who is a two-spirit. They're a fascinating character as well. This whole, what you're going to get, what you're going to see is all of the characters in the Ultimates are interesting. They're fascinating, and they're layered as well. They have ties to America, both in ways that have failed them, but also in ways where they can try and fix it. The Ultimates up until this point, up until issue 6, have been terrorizing corporations and big organizations that keep the Maker's regime intact. And then we get to issue 6, and we see that being just superheroes is simply not enough. Like I said, the Hulk is this massive, incredible force. He's not just gamma radiated. He has years and years of learning. What do you do against a Hulk who is not only completely conscious all the time, extremely intelligent all the time, and can fight like the best martial artist in the world? You can't do anything, and that's what we see. It is not enough to just be superheroes, and it comes at a cost, unfortunately. The Ultimate's first arc is amazing. It's generational. It's revolutionary. I love it so much because it reminds me of Grant Morrison's Justice League of America. It reminds me of The Authority, where it's definitely following this team and giving giving them depth and everything, but the core message is very deep. It is so much more than just superheroes banding together and trying to save people. It's the writer using these characters to tell us that there is so much more you have to do than just punch a villain. You can't just, that won't solve your problems. You have to figure out ways that will systematically dismantle whatever is oppressing you. And Deniz Camp is writing it flawlessly. I am in awe, sort of. I've been a big fan of Deniz Camp. I have been a believer that he is the next generation of those writers in that same tier as Ram V, and he's proving it. This series is phenomenal. If you're not reading this, you are seriously missing out. They're putting out some of the best comics you can ever read, and at first I thought the Ultimate Universe as a whole was great, and it is great, but this series is leaps and bounds above everything that's coming out right now, and its relevance is ridiculous, especially with it taking place in a different universe. I love this comic. You need to read it. It's the best comic coming out on shelves right now. Deniz Camp is writing his ass off, just completely. If you've been reading the Ultimates, let me know what you guys have thought in the comments. Like, subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.